Mr. Vestberg, very welcome to Bloomberg. Net income triples, sales rising by 17%. Are customers more committed to spending with you now than they were in the first quarter of 2010?
I think we have talked quite a lot about this shift that we have seen in our business, going from sort of the voice-centric network equipment to mobile broadband equipment, and that we already saw last year, but it just at the inflection point of the decline in the 2G business and the GSM business was still on a higher level. Now we can see that coming through, and so we have been talking this for quite a while, that mobile broadband is happening. We have a strong portfolio in mobile broadband and have a very good set of customers in that area. So of course in our numbers it comes out very strong in this quarter, but we have been talking about this shift for quite a while.
Well, if we just look at where you've seen the strong demand, North America, Korea and Japan, and I suppose the question is, do you see that as being a sustainable level of demand for 3G wireless going through 2011, or do you think that you're at the peak of that ordering cycle at the moment?
If you look at this market, I mean, North America has been growing now for quite a while for us. We doubled our turnover in North America last year, and they continue in this year as well. One important thing is, of course, the consumer demand, especially when the new smartphones and tablets coming out in the market using the mobile networks. And the most advanced markets are some of the markets that you mentioned, and they are, of course, also expanding the networks. But if you look globally, I mean, we see more and more penetration of smartphones and tablets, of course, and they will use the networks in another way. But also, if you look at Ericsson, you look at the 10 regions we're into, 5 is growing and 5 is not growing. And that's sort of our strength as well, that we are very global and being present in basically more than 180 countries.
And how brutal are you going to be in terms of looking at those geographies that are not performing, and in terms of focusing your resources on, as you say, the 5 growth areas? Are you prepared to tolerate slower growth in 50% of your business?
If we look historically, we have always had different regions coming up and down, and we're very committed to these markets. So I guess right now we have 5 regions growing, and last year we had 1, and years before that we had 7. So yeah. I think we are very committed to our markets and to our customer in all of these markets, and they are in a little bit of different cycles. So we are committed to that, but of course, we're always looking for growth because we want to be a growth company.
Well, now, if we just pick up on that, Russia and India are two of your key markets. Can you just give us a flavour of the nature of the sales in those markets, and I suppose more importantly, the margins that you're achieving specifically in Russia and in India at the moment?
So starting with India, we're growing nicely in the first quarter in India, but we need to remember the first quarter last year had a setback because of the security issues, etc. Yeah. So we had a low sales there as well. But definitely we see 3G now rolling out in India, and we are a great part of that. In Russia, we see both 2G and 3G expansions coming into the market. So both of them are growing, both from a subscriber point of view, but also from a usage point of view. When it comes to margins, I mean, countries doesn't define margins for us. It's more the nature of the project that we're doing, or the type of project we're selling in. I mean, if it's a footprint or a new network, it's tougher competition. And then, of course, when you're in upgrades and expansion. So it's more about what type of business you're into rather than which countries you're into.
But in terms of winning those business contracts, surely there must be tough negotiations on margins. If you're sitting in front of the clients, price must be the critical point at where you close these deals.
It has been for quite a long time that when we build new footprint, new modernizations, new technologies coming in, then of course it is a tough competition, but that has been for a long time, so that's nothing new. So we have already talked about India when the 3G footprint was decided, or the market share was decided. That's of course a tough battle, because India is a very important and growing market. So yes, it is a tougher discussion with customers when you come to that type of business.
Now, moving on to China, we've seen the 3G rollout over the past number of years. Do you think you're reaching a mature point with China in terms of the rollout, or do you expect further growth?
This quarter we saw good growth in China, driven by 2G and Edge still rolling out in China, and we are of course also rolling out 3G. They're adding a lot of subscriber, and the usage is also going up in China. So we will see how that will turn out in investment from the operators going forward.
Now, your customers, there's a lot of consolidation going on, most recently Deutsche Telekom, France Telecom, getting together, I suppose, to squeeze you guys, the deliverer of systems. How do you think these kind of tie-ups are going to impact Ericsson and negotiations that you have, and how are you going to overcome those challenges?
It's a little bit early to have any views on the mergers or purchasing department that you mentioned. We don't have all the insights, but we will work with that as well. I mean, that will also mean that they will streamline and be more focused in their investments. So it's always a good and a bad in this type of thing. So we will cope with that, and we have done it before. So I think it's just important that the industries go forward. We want to penetrate more customers worldwide, and of course, then the scale is very important for all of us in this industry.
I suppose concurrent with that, consolidation in the industry has been a driver, not least for yourselves, with your acquisition of Nortel in the United States last year. Despite that, we're seeing prices fall on equipment. How do you actually counter that trend?
Again, I mean, as we see, I mean, there are different price points and different competition in different parts of the networks, and that we have had for a long time. And we work with efficiency every day, and we will continue to do so. We're using our scale to get down the cost all the time. So for us, it's just to work with the cost levels all the time to be very efficient to meet the price point that the customers are demanding.
And do you think you've reached that point of where you've taken out as much cost out of the business as you can?
We concluded a large program in the mid of last year that was addressing quite a substantial amount of money. That doesn't mean that we're not doing cost efficiency programs that are ongoing. We do that all the time. We are in 180 countries. We have a large business volume all over around the world. So we are, of course, dimensioning every day in this company to really be efficient, and then we will continue to do.
Now, competition is key, and China has delivered one in the form of Huawei technology. Their ambition is to sell $100 billion worth of technology equipment over the next 5 to 10 years. They're looking at cloud computing, they're looking at small business networks. Are you going to go head-to-head in those areas with the likes of Huawei in terms of competition?
Our strength is, of course, our technology leadership in everything that is around mobility, core, and routers. That's where we're number one. We'll continue with that. Services, a very important piece of our business, usually around 40% of our turnover. Another area, everything in business support system for operators. Those areas are really where we're investing. And then, of course, cloud computing is a very important piece, how we deliver parts of those products. And then we have our 2 joint ventures. That's the market we address, and with that portfolio, I think we're addressing what we think is where we have a competitive advantage.
Now, supply problems have been evident for a number of industries post the Japan earthquake. Do you expect your supply problems to persist for a few months, or are we looking at a slightly longer term interruption?
As we said in the earlier, is that we are sourcing components from Japan, and that is impacting our business. And we believe that, or we estimate that certain products will have delays of delivery the months to come here because of the supply shortage. But we are also working with a lot of mitigating actions, everything from redesign to second suppliers to buying from the spot market, etc. But all in all, our best estimate is that we will be on normal levels back in the end of Q3. But again, we will have delays on certain products to our best estimate today due to this tragic situation in Japan.
And you've made an announcement this morning that you are signing a deal in the Russian Silicon Valley in Skolkovo. You're going to have a foundation there by 2014. Why is this so important, and what financial commitment are you going to make to this particular business? And what's it going to bring to the Ericsson party? What is it going to deliver for Ericsson going forward?
We have been in Russia since the 1890s, so we are an integral part of the telecommunication in Russia. This is a way for us to continue to work with different type of organization and develop telecommunication in Russia. So what we are committing to is research and development for certain type of products and verticals together in the Skolkovo region or the city. So that's what we're doing, and it's part of our commitment and being part of that Russian market.
Is it to get yourself a little bit closer to the Kremlin and on better terms to win bigger and better contracts in the country?
Again, we have been there since 1890. For us, we are part of this telecommunication industry in Russia, and we are acting like that both to attract good employees, giving that we have a good brand name, being part of what is happening in the research and development in Russia. So it's more for us to be part of the Russian market that we have been for a long, long time.
Just one last question, sir. As we see the United States consider ending quantitative easing, we see the European Central Bank raising rates. Are you concerned that global growth could stall as a result of these central bank actions, and is that a concern for you?
I think it's a little bit early to assess from our point, but I think one of the important parts for our business, of course, to understanding if the consumer demand is there. And our view is, of course, that mobility and broadband will impact people's life. It will impact enterprise and society. And of course, a growth rate is important there, but we think it's such an important vehicle for different type of stakeholders on this globe. So we think that mobility is going to be important long term. Then, of course, short term hiccups on economies will impact, but that's not for me to assess at this moment. It's too early.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for joining us here at Bloomberg. Hans Vestberg, President and CEO of Ericsson.